Shareef O'Neal is the son of NBA legend, Hall of Famer, and the most dominant dubstep DJ of all time, Shaquille O'Neal. Coming out of high school, Shareef was ranked as one of the top recruits in the nation. He was perceived to be a walking double-double, and it was just a matter of time until the son of the Hall of Famer made a name for himself. However, before his first college basketball season could even start, a fluke heart ailment put all of his dreams and aspirations on hold. It was thought for a period of time that Shareef would never play basketball ever again. But the year is now 2022, and after overcoming not only his heart troubles, but a challenge much more daunting, Shareef O'Neal entered the NBA draft. And unfortunately, he would go undrafted. There's no doubt that Shareef could be the steal of the NBA draft, but the real question is, what did Shareef O'Neal have to overcome in order to make it to where he is right now? And most importantly, how did Shareef O'Neal already show scouts that his work ethic and determination surpasses not only his father's, but rivals some of the greatest basketball players in NBA history?
Isn't that Shareef? Stand up, Shareef. My son Shareef is already one of the top high school juniors in the country, and I hope to see you up here one day, son.
As the son of a legendary basketball player, growing up, people assumed that Shareef had a silver spoon in his mouth, had everything handed to him, and that everything in front of him was simply gifted to him. But for Shareef O'Neal, that couldn't be further from the truth.
I earned what I'm getting, and it's not just given to me because of my last name.
Unlike many other NBA dads, Shaquille O'Neal doesn't just give his children unconditional cash, luxury cars, clothing, or even a hefty weekly allowance. In the words of DJ Diesel himself, he would remind his children all the time,
"We ain't rich, I'm rich."
Shaq in interviews has even come out and said his one rule to his children:
"In order to touch any of my cheese, you have to present me 2 degrees.
Meaning that if any of Shaq's 6 children want any chance to get some of their father's money, they need to be smart enough to do something with that money. But Shareef O'Neal, unlike his siblings, didn't want his father's money. Growing up through elementary school, Shareef O'Neal didn't really like sports all that much. Sure, he knew his father played basketball and he played AAU for fun sometimes, but in reality, he much preferred riding skateboards. But this all changed when one day while playing at an AAU tournament in middle school, Shareef had heard someone from the side saying, "Oh, that's Shaq's son? He's a bust." After hearing this, Shareef said, "That was probably my first time that I really heard it." And I kind of snapped after that and was like, all right, I'm dropping everything. I want to prove everybody wrong. While growing up, Shareef O'Neal's game consisted of being a big man who could create shots for himself, shoot the 3-ball, play defense, and unlike his father, even shoot free throws. The question now was Shareef O'Neal better than his father was when he was in high school? In the words of Shaq himself, way better. Shaq continued to explain that it ain't what I think, it's what I know. We're products of our environment. When I was watching guys played, everybody played inside. Guys are playing outside now. By the time Shareef was just 13 years old, he could dunk the basketball on a 9-foot rim. By the time he was 14, he was practicing with NBA stars, trying to steal their moves. And by the time he was a star in high school, his coach Gary Franklin said he has all the potential to be an NBA star. Coming up in the shadows of his dad is probably tough, but he's been able to create his own way. Before his freshman season could even begin, the hype surrounding Shareef was huge. A video surfaced of the 14-year-old at the time which showed him making pinpoint passes, deep threes, acrobatic layups, and even taking hard fouls just like his old man. Although expectations were probably high because of this, in his freshman year, Shareef would come off of the bench at Windward High School. At first, people were quick to say the reason was because Shareef O'Neal wasn't good enough, and that the highlight reel seen previously was just that, a highlight reel of an average player. But the truth is that Windward High School didn't have just 4 seniors they wanted to give playing time, not 5, but 6 seniors on the team were given priority playing time over Shareef O'Neal, just because they were in their final seasons. Still, in the little time he did play at forward, O'Neal put up just over 3 points per game and nearly 3 rebounds. In his sophomore season, with the 6 seniors out of the way, O'Neal finally had had been given the minutes to be a star, and finally in a tournament matchup against Bishop Ailmany, O'Neal went off for a team-high 23 points in a close duel, which ended up in a loss for Windward High School. After proving that he was a force not to be reckoned with, O'Neal would transfer to Crossroads School in Santa Monica, California. This move wasn't random, as both Sharif and Shaq had agreed that Crossroads High was the perfect mix of basketball competitiveness and academic challenge for Sharif to attend. Recently, after transferring, he was asked, how does a player get better at basketball? Sharif's response is without a doubt one of the most mature responses a man at his age could give, which is that I was never really good at basketball until I turned 15. Kids ask me how to get better, and I just say you have to want it. I was determined. I'm 16 now and still have plenty of flaws to overcome and have tons of room for improvement. I'm nowhere near my full ability, and this would be some excellent foreshadowing as Sharif O'Neal was about to endure one of the most difficult obstacles in his entire life. As a junior, Sharif O'Neal appeared in 20 games, putting up 14 points and 7 rebounds per game, but also chipped in defensively, bringing up a steal and a half per game in addition to half a block per game as well. Many doubters at the time were quick to point to O'Neal really struggling to lead the team consistently. However, anyone who told you that simply did not watch the basketball game. Plus, O'Neal was playing with one of the biggest high school recruits at the time, Ira Lee, and as a result, he wasn't the focal point of the offense. Still, he played admirably, and in his senior season of basketball, while playing at the Nike Elite Youth League with the California Elite Supreme Team, O'Neal put up 15 and 6, and once again, doubters came flocking. However, once again, with a trained eye and simply watching the basketball, it's obvious to tell those numbers could have been bigger had it not been for the fact that he played on the same team as the league's MVP, Bull, who ate up most of the stat sheet. If my words aren't enough to convince you just how dominant Sharif had been in the latter half of his high school career, simply take a look at his senior season resume. Sharif O'Neal at Crossroads High School would go on to average 27 points and 17 rebounds en route to his school's first state championship since the 1990s. In the championship game, Sharif went off for 29 points and 17 rebounds and even blocked 5 shots while going 13 for 17 from the free throw line, a stat that his father would be proud of. After carrying his team, Sharif's list of scholarship offers was the same size as a late night receipt from McDonald's, and rightfully so. Sharif O'Neal was ranked as a 4-star recruit by Max Preps and ESPN, and was even the 12th ranked prospect in all of California. Sharif had received scholarship offers from LSU, Baylor, Kansas State, USC, and committed to Arizona initially, but after an alleged FBI wiretap had shown that Arizona had illegally tampered with the former #1 overall pick, DeAndre Ayton, Sharif decided to commit to UCLA instead. However, before his freshman season could even begin, Sharif O'Neal would begin to wear a heart monitor in practices, and soon after it would be announced that O'Neal would miss his freshman season, instead opting to redshirt with a serious heart condition. What would happen next not only shocked Sharif himself, but fans around the world. O'Neal would go on to be diagnosed with a congenital heart defect affecting the coronary artery in his heart. Usually these things can be found at birth when people are just babies, but O'Neal, for some reason, had never been diagnosed with the ailment. His own mother, Shawnee O'Neal, would go on to say,
an artery that just grows in the wrong place. He was born with it. He literally could have died from it. They let us know that, Sharif needs open heart surgery. I felt my heart break. This is definitely the hardest thing that we've ever had to face in our lives.
If left untreated, congenital heart defects, specifically in the coronary artery, can result in loss of life. However, luckily for Sharif and his family, the doctors at UCLA had found it, and in October of 2018, Sharif underwent open heart surgery to fix his artery. The surgery was brutal for Sharif. He had lost 25 pounds of muscle, and it had taken him a week to properly learn how to fully walk again. For most, the surgery could end your career. The physical endurance of any individual absolutely tanks after something so physically intensive and intrusive as open heart surgery. But after just one offseason, Sharif O'Neal was once again ready to play basketball. However, once he returned to the court, things didn't go as planned, as O'Neal would get around 10 minutes of playing time if he did play at all for UCLA. The Bruins would go 19-12 in his freshman season, but Sharif appeared in just 13 games the entire season. In a game against Notre Dame, a game in which O'Neal played a near season high of 17 minutes, he put up 8 points on 50% shooting. shooting, and even had 11 rebounds, 5 of which were offensive. Whenever Sharif did get on the court, however, he was a streaky scorer, but his rebounding ability and shot blocking potential kept him as competitive as anyone else. By the end of the season, Sharif O'Neal would announce that he would be transferring to his father's alma mater, the LSU Tigers, mainly due to the fact that he wasn't receiving as much playing time as he wanted. He was a clean scratch for 18 of UCLA's 31 games that season, and in fact, he missed more games than he played the entire season. The 2020 season was heavily anticipated for Sharif. He was expected to be a first-round talent out of high school if everything went according to plan, but after 2 seasons of collegiate basketball, near life-threatening injuries, and coaches not favoring him meant that he simply hadn't been given the chance that many people had hoped. So as a result, on a new team, a whole year after his injury, Sharif O'Neal now had the perfect chance to show the world that the last season was a fluke, and now at LSU he would blossom into the star everyone knew he was capable of becoming. But alas, after just 5 games in an LSU uniform, Sharif had gone down with a major injury that resulted in him walking around with a walking boot. O'Neal in his short time on the court appeared in just 10 games for the LSU Tigers, but in his time he played off the bench and put up similar scoring statistics to his freshman season. He was a much better rebounder and overall a smarter shooter who knew when and when not to pull the trigger. Going into year 3, the coaching staff at LSU had seen a player who at best could contribute off the bench in small doses, but had an injury history not long but filled with serious ailments that if given to any other athlete would end their career. This is just a testament to Sharif O'Neal's resilience, but as a result, not wanting to see if Sharif still had the injury bug that he was bitten with, the coaching staff played Sharif in just 14 of the team's 34 games and only let him play on average less than 10 minutes a game. Sharif's numbers, like you would expect, had stayed the same as years prior, but when you consider he was putting up those numbers in nearly half the minutes, it's impressive in a way. After the season, O'Neal would enter the transfer portal for the second time in his career. However, before he would pick another team to play for in 2022, Sharif would declare for the 2022 NBA draft. And unfortunately for Sharif, once again, things didn't go according to plan, as Sharif would not even get drafted in the entirety of the NBA draft. Shortly after, Adrian Wojnarowski would announce that Sharif O'Neal had agreed to play for the Los Angeles Lakers Summer League team, which would definitely make Laker fans reminisce of the good old days where his father would don the number 34 purple jersey and catch lobs from the late great Kobe Bryant. In his 4-year career, Sharif O'Neal played a whopping total of 37 games, and that has got to be the main reason why NBA teams weren't ranking him higher than he is on their draft board. O'Neal as a player has a physical build and his skill set screams potential. I mean, for God's sake, his father is literally Shaquille O'Neal. He physically is built like an NBA All-Star, but what's plaguing Sharif from developing into that All-Star is a weird and awkward combination of injury history and previous coaching staffs. Let me explain. Throughout high school, Sharif had a pretty clean injury history, resulting in a young raw talent who hadn't played basketball much growing up, turning into a high school superstar. Flash forward to college, and during the time that he's supposed to be competing against collegiate stars to sharpen his craft is either being spent in rehab or just on the bench in general. Starting with this terrifying heart surgery before his freshman season could ever begin, coaches didn't want to push Sharif to his limit on the court. They didn't want him playing a ridiculous number of minutes, and by proxy, he never put up big numbers. Then we look at his sophomore season at LSU, the season in which he was supposed to take a big step forward and finally light up box scores. And just 5 games into the season, he had a foot injury that limited him to just 5 games for the rest of the entire season. Now we look at his final season in college, his junior season, and after underperforming due to lost time on the court and injury scares, he was playing a career low number of minutes, despite being 4 years into college. A hater could easily and blindly point at his college career and say that Sharif was a bust who simply never lived up to his father's expectations. But the truth is, he was a superstar potential forward who simply played at the wrong places and was bitten by the injury bug harder than nearly any athlete's ever been bit before. You have a heart surgery and try playing collegiate basketball. Hell, try playing any sport at any level and you'll just see how difficult it will be. Sharif O'Neal, after entering the NBA draft, went undrafted, but he does have an opportunity to prove himself to the Los Angeles Lakers, who are desperate for role players at this point. To be honest with you, if Sharif O'Neal didn't sustain 2 injuries, he may have been a first-round pick. When you look at his skill set, his build, the way he's carried himself over his career, it becomes more and more apparent. The kid is nearly 7 foot tall. He can create shots for his teammates. He can shoot the deep ball and even protect the rim. He is literally what a my player build would be if someone tried to recreate Nikola Jokic in NBA 2K. As for the way he carries carries himself and approaches basketball, well, from a young age he's been set on proving people wrong and getting better and better. And we have no reason to believe that has changed. According to many, Shareef O'Neal, if he wanted, could have made literally millions of dollars in new NCAA NIL deals, but instead chose to declare for the NBA draft. And he knows more than anyone else that he would not be a first-round pick and would make significantly less money than if he were to stay in college, meaning that Shareef ignored the money and wants to prove the haters wrong on the biggest stage of them all, the NBA. In order to get to where he is today, Shareef O'Neal had to overcome so much that his work ethic seriously is already of an NBA star. He is the first to practice, and even when practice ends, he would practice driving to the basket just to make sure he didn't lose his touch. Seeing as Shareef had grown up with Kobe Bryant in his life, and seeing as the two were so close that Shareef would refer to Kobe as his uncle, maybe, just maybe, Kobe instilled some of that Mamba mentality into Shaquille O'Neal's son, which, let's be honest, could create a legend out of any individual who could instill even 5% of Kobe Bryant's work ethic within him. At the next level, don't expect much from Shareef initially, and honestly, maybe don't expect much from him for 2 or 3 years. You have to remember we are talking about a player who hasn't had a real full season at any level since his high school days, and that college time is absolutely crucial for player development. However, once Shareef does develop into the player we all know he's capable of being, it would be safe to expect a sixth man or borderline starting forward / small ball center who on any night could explode for 20 points, but average around 10 to 15 points and 10 rebounds a game. Let's be honest, if Shareef O'Neal had played basketball growing up since elementary school and had started his development at a younger age, he not only could be a better player than he is now, and not only would have been drafted in the NBA draft, but he could have been 10 times better than he is currently, and could have been literally the first overall pick in any NBA draft. Now Shareef O'Neal has the opportunity to prove his haters wrong, but this might be just his last chance in Summer League with the Los Angeles Lakers.